Welcome, everybody, to another week of The Horse's Mouth. This is Alistair Black with Equestria Daily. Today, I am joined by the fabulous Michelle Creber. Would you like to say hi, Michelle?
Hey everyone.
Howdy, howdy. It's an honor to have you. We're very excited to finally have you on here and for a live interview, nonetheless. So, Q&A here at
Yeah.
the end. We're looking forward to that. Um, it's been a 12 year. It's been a long time, and you've been through it since the
I
very
know,
beginning.
right? Over a
Gosh,
decade.
over a decade. You're right.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
hard to
yeah.
believe sometimes.
It's over half my life now for sure. Because I always used to say it's like close to half my life, and now we're over that
Oof.
threshold.
Oof.
Wild, eh?
That's something.
Yeah,
Ponies,
but no,
ponies, ponies.
it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be here and talk through stuff and it's just great to see that this fandom is still going strong and people are still finding community in it and yeah, it's so great to be talking with you today.
Heck yeah. Once again, awesome to have you. The ride never ends. We're going to keep it going long after.
Cool.
Even if it's just me and Seth, we're going to be here and it's going to be a lot of fun.
You here in
Um,
like 2053.
I,
If we're all
that
still here in 2053.
fair, fair, fair.
You got the water though. You got the water, Alistair. You're ready. You're ready for whatever's to come.
We'll see. We haven't even touched on the food storage. We've got a lot going on
Oh,
here. Mm,
yes,
it's
I
very good to
bet.
have. Very good to have.
Tip of the iceberg.
So we have this very cliche question. I'm guaranteeing right now that you've never, ever, ever, ever heard this, but I have to ask. The people really, really want to know. Who is your who is your who's least favorite pony?
Least favorite, in my opinion?
Oh yeah.
Oh, man. You're throwing this at me right off the bat.
I mean,
Oh, I mean, to be honest, it's funny because as a personality, I think Apple Bloom is hilariously annoying. Like, I always
hmm.
found her to be like so whiny. And I loved that about that. I loved that about her, and I loved playing that because she was like, ultimately, she had such a great heart, but like, I always thought she was such a, I don't know, she loved to be a little bit of a drama queen, right? So just for the sake of not throwing anyone else under the bus, because I didn't have any least favorite characters, I will simply just put a dagger in my own little yellow stuffed heart of Apple Bloom.
I mean that's rough to hear, but I mean, strategically
Rough,
speaking, I mean you picked a good
right?
choice. Nobody got
Thank you.
offended. Anybody who did,
I'm like a
that's a good
politician
one.
dodging these questions.
That's
Yeah.
very, very good. That's very expertly done. I'm impressed. Uh, I guess to make it a little bit more positive, then, since you can't pick Apple Bloom, who's your favorite pony then?
Ooh, favorite growing up. Cuz I loved the first two seasons and I was 11 by the time the first season came out. And as voice actors, we only hear or see the episodes we're in, and even then it's going by so fast that we don't really get to, we're just looking at a script, right? So once everything was put together, I was like, holy cow, this is the best thing. And as an 11-year-old too, those first two seasons was just like burst of color, burst of excitement. I loved Rainbow Dash. And I looked up to all of them as a kid, but I loved Ashley and watching her switch back and forth from my older sisters, the Applejack, that character, and then a Rainbow Dash. But I just thought Rainbow Dash was so cool. So definitely Rainbow Dash. Probably that stayed throughout, the decade. Was Rainbow Dash. Rainbow Dash best pony, as they say.
Certainly not an unpopular opinion by any means.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
like a less conventional answer though. I loved not a pony, but I loved Gummy. I really liked Gummy when Gummy was invented. So there you go. There's a little bit less of a cliche answer.
No, Gummy's best pony. I completely agree. Up there with Spike, I'd say.
Totally.
It's a good one.
Yeah,
And after the
yeah,
monologue,
exactly.
he kind of solidified himself as the head pony for sure.
Yes. You see, you get me.
And I think Lee did the voice for Gummy on the 100th episode, so he's the official voice of Gummy. So that makes
Right.
Gummy as a character so much better, in my opinion.
Yes, yes, totally.
The something I'd like to start with, and something that I think you can kind of you're one of the few people on the cast that could provide this unique perspective. You, as you said, started with Pony very, very young. Would you be willing to take me through a little bit of a journey here about how you started as a child in working in entertainment and voice acting, and how that opportunity for My Little Pony came into your life, how old you were, and then what that looked like before it finally went to air. What was that process like for you?
Yeah, 100%. I'll take you back in the time machine.
Yeah.
Voice acting was honestly the first professional avenue I went into, and obviously my parents are both musicians and entertainers, so I grew up from day one in a musical household. They had, music classes literally running from the like a couple weeks old, sitting on my mom's lap watching her teach a room full of piano students or vocal students. So it was always part of my life. So through like I was singing in front of a microphone. Dad has a studio downstairs, and I started doing voices very young and working on little projects my dad was doing as like 5 or 6 year old because I loved it. I loved being in front of the microphone in my dad's ISO booth. And for many years I did this before I had my agent. I did this thing called Mason, which was a massive program that was teaching Japanese children English. And so I voiced a bunch of different characters and animals and things like that really young, around like 5 or 6. And then I got an agent, Caroline Young, who's still my agent today. So I've been with Caroline for like 16 years, which is so wild. I just saw her. We got to catch up like 2 weeks ago, and we were thinking about that. It's like just so wild how long it's been. So I love Caroline. And I joined with her when I was 7, I believe, maybe 6. Booked my first gig as Lucy in Peanuts, which I did with Claire Corlett. Claire Corlett and I have like been together since day one. Um, and that was the first like professional booking through my agency. Again, what predated that was like Mason, that program, a bunch of other things. Um, and then, once you have an agent, you are just going through the regular process of they will send you out for auditions. And back then, up until 2 years ago, we'd go into the different studios and see the casting directors and the producers and go in and read for 1 or 2 characters. And I remember auditioning for the main 6 um, when I was 9, like earlier in the year before the second round of auditions came out for the other characters, because they didn't know at that point that if they wanted adults or kid voices for the ponies. And then ultimately Lauren decided to go with the adults for the main 6, and then the next round of auditions was like a couple months later. And I I remember I remember thinking if I were to get anything, which you are never in an audition ever thinking you're going in to being like, I'm going to get this. Never. As actors, you book like 3% of the stuff you audition for. But I remember at the time being like, okay, if I were to ever get something, like it would definitely be Sweetie Belle, because Sweetie Belle was the singer. And I didn't, I mean, I had done some accents, but my mom always like had this country character that she'd read different like stories to me in. And so I went in, I did Apple Bloom and Sweetie Belle and I think Scootaloo. And at the time, there was those other characters like Twist, something Twist, and I don't think I auditioned for Diamond Tiara, but all those kid characters were in one batch of auditions. And at that point, they didn't know like what the plots were going to be or anything like that. And that's common when you go into an audition for there to be a pool of characters, and you just kind of choose like 2 or 3 out of them. And I heard back, I don't know how long after, maybe like a month is pretty average, or 2 weeks. And I was really shocked that it was Apple Bloom. I was like, really? Okay. And, one of the producers was like, that was one of the most authentic, like, that she was from the South. And she was like, that's one of the most, like, authentic country accents I've ever heard. And as a kid, I was like, okay, I guess. Like, I didn't think it was necessarily bad, but I didn't think it was, like, on the nose, like, and she would know at that time, so I was like, okay, great. And then at that point, before Claire was comfortable singing, and Claire has a fantastic voice. I'm so glad that she started to sing for Sweetie Belle whenever it was around like season 4 or so, because Claire's just like totally gained the confidence in her voice, and she's got so many great like comedy songs, and like she's got her own artistry, and her and I have written a bunch of fun silly songs together and stuff. But at that point, then they told me like, okay, we'll book you for Apple Bloom, and then you'll also be the singing voice of Sweetie Belle. And then I don't really, to be honest, remember too much of recording the first season. The next thing I remember really well after that portion, and I think I remember it because I talked about it so much through my teenagehood. Otherwise, I don't have a lot of memories predating like 11 years old. But you know, when you tell a story enough, you remember it. Like the moment I can like physicalize, remember where I was, is when I was told I was like I got the role, because you usually remember those things like when you get told you get a job or you book something, whether you're in entertainment or not, you like remember where you were no matter how young you were because it's like a big deal. Um, but the next thing I remember after recording the first season then was everyone talking about the bronies. And it was when we were recording season 2, because we're already on season 2 by the time season 1 is coming out. And it was Andrea who first brought it into our little like meeting room outside of the booth, and she's like, "Have you heard?" We're like, "No, what?" And everyone was sort of talking about and whispering about it. And we were all like, "What?" We thought we were making a kids show, right? And again, like I loved it. I was super stoked about it, but you know, with these things you don't know how anything's going to go. Um and it just ended up, you know, well, I'm sure we'll get into that, but that's kind of the next thing I remember was just that, you know, introduction to the whole new world. But yeah, that's kind of the journey.
But what a heck of a journey it must be. I mean, there's some people who don't get involved in this into this sort of thing until much later in their lives. So to have that experience and to have that journey at such a young age must have been. Do you often, as you know, somebody who came into this, you know, as a child professionally, do you have a chance? I mean, have you really reflected on what it's like for you as an experience, as opposed to maybe like an adult entering the field for the first time? Um,
Years. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, A, like so fortunate. I think about that all the time. Like I really, really, really was in a very, very fortunate position as a child to be in the entertainment industry and to have a good experience too, pretty much throughout my entire young career. Um, and yeah, I mean, I did work hard though as a child, so at the same time, I don't think I was lucky. I mean, I didn't even go to normal school post grade 5. I was mainly just working. I graduated high school, don't worry, I did online school. But you know what I mean? Like I was a very committed child. I really wanted to be there. I really wanted to be professional. I really always bonded with people much older than me, and I felt very passionate about it from day one. So obviously there's so much luck involved, and like you never know. Again, we thought we were making like a kids show that we all liked, but you can't project these things. So even specifically My Little Pony was such a gift. Beyond belief, for sure, for sure.
no doubt. And what a lightning in a bottle experience. I mean, what just on the same note, people who are coming into this as adults, you know, they might spend their entire careers, or they might not have an opportunity to work on a project that just has such an impact. Not
Yeah,
only just, you know, in pop culture, but I would argue on society, contributing to a lot of positive things on internet culture as a whole. Uh,
totally.
so for the fandom, do you remember like? I mean, obviously you were a kiddo. I know. You know, big props to your mom. You know, she stood there with you and helped you through a lot of that journey. But do you remember
Absolutely.
like your first introduction to Pony? Like, did you ever? I know at some point you had, but did you ever go through like fan content? Did you have any exposure to any of that outside of conventions? What did that look like for you in your personal life?
Mm-hmm. Well, I remember it was, I think, 2 days like that week after Andrea was talking to everybody outside the session when she was like, "Have you heard?" And we hadn't. But then literally a couple days later, I called him First Fan Tim, and I still know Tim Gropner. He's so great. He's a couple years younger than me. So I just remember getting this email. Well, I'm sure it was my mom. I didn't even have an email at that point. But it was maybe even like a handwritten letter to our PO box. No, I think it was just an email, and it was like, you know, "Hi, my name's Tim. I love the show My Little Pony. I just watched the whole first season, and I just really related to Apple Bloom specifically, and I'm just so excited that this show exists." And it was like, again, like, sincerely, Tim, wherever he lived at the time, 16 years old. And we were, oh yeah, he's a couple years older than me. That's right. And I just remember both my mom and I going, 16. that's kind of like over the demographic that we were thinking, right? Boy or girl, like it was never a gender thing, right? It was just like, oh, we were like gearing the show towards 8 to 12-year-olds, and 16 was kind of like, wow, okay, cool. So anyways, first fan Tim, and then after that moment, it was like it's just kind of a whirlwind of all of it happening at once. And then I think we all went to that first convention in Seattle very soon after. But everyone tested the waters with, I think, like Andrea and Tara and Tabitha went to, well, not Baltimore. The first one was New York. They went to New York, and then they all came back and reported that it was a good experience. So I had the benefit of obviously having my mom, and my mom was the biggest reason that I was able to do what I did growing up, regardless. But not only my mom, but like all the older voice actors, because there was only like just the three of us that were actually kids. We just kind of like gauged how they were feeling about the situation. Because even at that point, someone like Tabitha has been doing what she's been doing for like, already like 30 years at that point. So these are some of the most experienced, brilliant voice actors in the world. Someone like Tara too. And so when they went to conventions and when they started to have really positive experiences with the bronies, we were all like, okay, cool. I'm just excited to learn more. I don't think anyone was ever like standoffish at first. At least I don't remember that. I just remember everyone being very curious and excited to learn more and meet these people that we were, didn't have a face for yet. Yeah.
Heck yeah. And when you finally did go to a convention, I could only imagine that there was a lot of emotion for that, especially at such a young age. Did you, I mean, I'm assuming you had a pleasurable experience. You obviously went to plenty of following that. Do you remember how you were feeling when you were first about to go to your first con?
Yeah, so again, it would have been Seattle, and it was nice because all three of us were there, Claire, Maddie, and I, and many other people as well, most of the main adult cast as well.
Yeah.
And I mean, for me, the biggest part of conventions was just that even as a child, I was extremely extroverted. I still am very extroverted, and extrovert and introverted from a psychological definition standpoint is just how you recharge. Do you recharge with people or do you like to recharge by yourself? So it's not that like outgoing, shy definition that some people use. Like I think of myself as 100% extroverted, I guess in both ways, but like I just love people. I love meeting people. I love talking to people. I love working with people. I love being creative with people. I love learning people's stories. Like I could just be with people and meet new people every second of every day and I'd be happy for the rest of my life. And I don't know, maybe it was chicken and the egg. Like I remember already feeling that way as a child, but perhaps those kinds of events and getting to just like have this overwhelm of new people to, learn about their life and all that stuff was so exciting to me at the time. And I don't know, maybe I'm that way because of that, but I think I was already a little bit that way. So yeah, I don't remember anything but being like super stoked. Super stoked. And we were already all performers, so like as a kid having to get on stage and talk was not stressful at all. Um I've never found like talking stressful on stage. If I feel like there's like a song or something I've not prepped enough for, that's one thing, but like I just enjoy conversations. I don't think of like, you know, being on a panel as any different than just having a conversation with somebody. And I remember that's how I felt at the time as well. So yeah, really positive.
Heck yeah. And I mean all the times I had met you as well as all the years and years and years of you going to cons and all the awesome voice actress and actor footage that we've gotten out of that. That's always been the energy we've gotten from all you guys really, and it's wonderful to see. Uh we were blessed to have such an awesome, like I said, lightning in a bottle, from the writers to the animators to the actors. Every little bit of the project was um just so many incredible people.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind just to date, looking back on it, how lucky we were to have that opportunity, as a
Yeah.
community, to have such awesome people who are willing to be a part of that with us. Um, way back in the long ago, we had a little bit of a boom with fandom content. We had music, animation, all this crazy stuff coming out, on an hourly, minute by minute basis, and Well, it's a lot, and people who are coming in, as we had spoken about just a minute ago, for the first time, they've never seen that content. There's a lot of people who are coming back into the fandom who might have seen that content who haven't in years, and there's a lot of nostalgia. Can you remember maybe some things from the early fandom, from the community that you thought were, was a really awesome project, music, whatever the case may be, something that stands out to you as being sentimental or maybe close to your heart?
Yeah, totally. And there was so much good music, like
A ton.
especially music. I mean, well, the visual art was evident from day one. Like even in those initial emails, the drawings people were sending us were just spectacular. So that to me has always been honestly one of the most incredible parts was just like the artistry and the plushies, whether if it was like physical sculpting or if it was drawing two dimensional or like so like just the or stained glass or tattooing, like it was just like this wild, crazy spectrum of visual arts. But the music is the thing that I think stood out to me, because at the time, that was a big part of what it continued to be a big part of what I did on the show, and I'd already worked with Daniel a lot, so the music to see it continue into the fandom and people continue like different plot ideas and internal character dialogue through their own songs was so cool. And was the stuff that like interested me the most. And I think on a life of its own. Um, and I thought it was really cool that like people were just finding like a way to get their own artistry heard through like the lens of these already like very beloved and now like pretty big characters. Um, but I mean, I've always been really interested in just like creative people and different perspectives people have, and um, the project just kind of like came about naturally as I met people, and again, as a kid, like I already didn't relate to the people around me my age unless it was someone like Claire or like other kids in the industry who were already also just as kind of like old-minded as I was at the time, which has its positives and negatives because you kind of like don't like think, you don't really act as much as a kid like you should, but you're also already like learning professional attitude and trying to build up maturity. And I was a pretty mature child. I was very hyper, of course. I had a very high pitched voice and sort of insanity. But I think mentally I was pretty ahead of myself. And so I just saw the opportunity to have fun and be creative with individuals. And Andy was through a mutual friend, Gabe was through a mutual friend. Um, and it was just really cool to be able to again like create something. People were creating something that was unique, but again through the lens of something that already had such a community, and so people like felt even more impacted by it, which is just is exciting, right? When you can find a way to really um impact people with art that's like already has really a basis to it, so it just connects with people even deeper. And I think actually even before Gabe and Andy, it was like Mike the microphone and Living Tombstone. Living Tombstone actually might have been the first guy I collaborated with. I love that guy. I haven't seen him again like in years. Like you, I haven't seen them in years. But yeah, and I just loved it. I loved it. I loved working on any project anyone, put on the table for me at that time. And it was a really positive community. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. Like, again, at that point, I was already out of school. So I was just doing school at like 9 p.m. whenever, like, again, I did online school from grade 5 till I graduated. So I was just already sort of full time invested in the arts and all that stuff. So,
Heck yeah. Well, you certainly took it to a whole nother level. I tested out when I was 15, straight into college, and I didn't use any of that potential for anything. I sat around and drew ponies all day, and that doesn't always, that's not a great investment. That takes a lot of time. But
well,
you had so many great projects. You had so many great projects that you had done, and I hate to ask because picking favorites sucks. But do you have a favorite fan project that you did?
um, I mean, probably Beat It just because it was so widely received in
Yeah.
such a positive way and it was so fun. And I love Michael Jackson growing up, and both Gabe and I were just like excited to just throw that out there to the animation video and stuff. It just ended up being like we just sort of did it for fun, and it sort of ended up being a really fun thing for people. And I don't say that because it was the most popular. I didn't really care about that, but like, people just the more popular something is, the more people usually seem to get involved with it, and like people just love that video even years and years and years and years later. They were like, man, I love the Beat It PMB or whatever. I was like, great, okay, awesome. Like just the positivity is what I was excited about. Other than that, yeah, the first thing that Living Tombstone and I did together, probably was another like really fun. I loved all the EDM dubstep stuff that we all did. Like that was really cool.
Heck yeah. And I don't know if you have been following a lot of the up and coming creators or anybody in the fandom as of late, but we have a ton of people who have been either building their own road or working alongside artists who have been in the fandom for a while now. And they're
Mm.
finding their place, they're exploring, they're trying new things. If you could say something to these people who are trying out, who want to be musicians, who want to do something for the community, or maybe something you would like to see from the fandom creatively, is there anything you'd like to say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I just love how people are able to utilize and bring to life their own unique creativity with like an inspiration that's already so clear and connected with people. Because as writers, outside of, even if you're not writing something attached to a fandom, you're still usually writing from an inspiration of some kind. Like in this oversaturated world where there's like, it's almost hard to write a new melody or a new idea. Everything's kind of inspired by something, right? So, but at the same time, every new person and every individual person has something completely unique and individual to bring to the table. So I would just say for any creator like that, that balance is very powerful and exciting when you already have something that's like content that's already inspiring you so much, but then you can also kind of explore your own voice in it. It's really a cool combination.
I'm curious what your perspective is. So I've spent the last 4 or 5 years in Branson, Missouri, before moving up here to KC. And I don't know if you've ever heard of Branson, but it's a cool little show town. We have all these. It's like the
Hmm.
Vegas of the South. It's very very fancy, very country. And I'll all the time I'll run into these musicians who they are incredibly talented. They're extremely gifted. They're professionally trained. They've spent time on stages. They performed, and their mindset now, years and years later, is that things are, like you said, so saturated. You can't do anything new, and they lose the motivation. They don't feel like there's any way they can actually penetrate that or make something that inspires at least them enough to continue to do it. To somebody who might be in
Hmm.
a position like that, would you have any advice for them?
Yeah, first of all, I just say I feel you because I think that every artist on every level would especially feel that way now. Like we're just in this really weird transitional time where everything feels absurdly overwhelming and also like nothing's real at the same time. At least like everyone that I know has felt that way for so long now, and especially, yeah, in entertainment, like you said, it's just so oversaturated, and it's disheartening to feel like, well, as passionate as I feel about this thing, I don't think it's anything new. I don't think it's anything different. But I mean, there's billions of people on this planet. Most of us haven't had more than a couple of like original thoughts. We're all the same species, right? Like we do have a hive mind in a sense, but time and time and time and time and time again, when someone says something that comes from their heart, it's always going to impact a couple of people. It doesn't matter how many, whether it's actually a couple dozen, a couple hundred, a couple thousand, a couple million, doesn't matter, right? Like when you speak from the heart, or it doesn't even have to be that deep. If you just make something that makes you happy or gets an emotion out of some kind, the scale doesn't matter. The scale is for business. That's a different side. When you're thinking creatively, like if you're being honest, then you're always doing something. something meaningful, you know? But it is hard. It is hard, and I think a lot of people don't really even know what the industry, music specifically, looks like right now. I'm personally just trying to be patient, like pushing and pushing and pushing for so long professionally, and then realizing that I really just need to take a step back and like develop myself in this like new age of like just when you go for so long and you push and push and push, it's kind of taking a step back and just like writing or just trying to find your creative voice like that. I think is the best thing to do right now, and just being patient as well as like the world shifts and turns into something kind of different, right? So that would probably be my advice. And again, like I would just say, I get it. I really get it. I think everyone would.
Heck yeah. So being genuine, being passionate, doing something because you love to do it, not caring about the consequences or the scale of how things might end up.
Mhm.
I mean that's wonderful advice. I personally I really want to start my gangster rap career, and I've
You
been
got
I've been
the swing
trying.
already.
I've been trying to launch it for so long, and I'll really
Yeah.
take that advice, and I'll keep it close to my heart so I can ensure that that maybe is something that can happen for me in the future.
Yes.
Um,
And like again, I think everyone confuses now art with like the business side of things, but to me it's like those are two different things you have to think about. When you're worried about how many people are listening, all that kind of stuff, like that's business. That's your business mind. But as an artist, like if you want to make that kind of music, you go for it. And then you can worry if you're passionate about it in a real sense and you want to support your living, like then of course the other brain's important, but like just do it, do it and share it with your friends. And like if it makes you happy, like write poetry, write your own music, go into your own style because music is so expressive and it's really important to be creative for sure.
no joke, and I think especially in times like this, and it's naturally something that's already happened, but with the way the world is and with the way, especially things have been post COVID, people are finding themselves down or with more free time or whatever the case may be, and they're driven
Mhm.
to express that creatively. Um, and that's amazing to see. It really is. Do you agree with the sentiment at least to some degree that um, tragedy or negative things in life can build towards uh, a stronger creative outreach or a stronger passion within yourself to produce or create?
Always. And that to me translates to any like personal level, and like hard times and difficult experiences or what are going to make you grow as a human being. So naturally it's also going to make you grow as an artist. I'd say you kind of have to find the balance because you can kind of fall into that trap of like, ooh, I need to be a tortured artist to have interesting ideas, like it's kind of like method acting, right? It's like, oh, I really gotta get into it. It's like, that's not the only way to do it, right? Well, if you build up techniques and stuff, you can always find inspiration from something. It doesn't have to just be like personal torment, right? And I'm not saying I've fallen down that, but like, sometimes I felt that like the most interesting songs I've ever written have been at maybe like sadder times or darker times, and that's just one part of it. Like those maybe yeah do create like emotionally charged songs, so you can turn something negative into a positive, but like there's also a balance, right? Then I think there's also so much room to write really happy songs. And I think sometimes people don't write happy songs when they're happy because they're happy and so they're distracted and they're maybe not like needing to be expressive and creative, right? There's nothing like boiling underneath that you have to get out or write down or make into a script or a picture or a song. So yeah, I think there's a balance for sure.
Heck yeah, and I'm sure a level of like spontaneity plays into that as well. Of course, I know just from the creative things I've done in my life, a lot of the things that I've done that are the most genuine and at least catch on the most sometimes just come from out of the blue. It's just something you think on, um, or you don't think on rather maybe. Uh,
Yeah.
I agree with the method acting though. I mean, I got the chain. I smoke the black and milds. I wear the sunglasses at night. I sleep on the stone floor here. I mean,
Uh-huh.
you got to do what you got to do, and really that it could be a great help if you really put it to use. But you have to be dedicated. It has to be something you want to do. You have to be passionate about
Oh,
it, right?
yeah. Yes, you gotta live the lifestyle.
For sure,
Yeah, you gotta be in it. Yeah, yeah.
got to be in it. Uh, I mean, it's going to cost a lot of money to get all these gang tattoos removed, but I think by the end of it, I think I'm going to be in a good place. Once again,
Yes,
it's all for the gangster rap album.
it's all for the
Um,
gangster vibes.
dropping next September. So I'd like to talk a little bit about COVID, but before I
Yeah.
transition into, oh, that sounded a little aggressive. You know, the how things have played since COVID has occurred, because I know that's been a big part
Totally.
in everybody's lives. I'd
Yeah.
like to ask first, just before we get too deep into things, how much of Gen 5 have you seen, if any?
Honestly, I've not seen any of it. I have seen like I think people have sent me a couple of trailers. I've seen what the animation looks like for sure. And because I remember they had didn't they have like the outlines for the animation even before the pandemic? Um,
Older media
I,
started it, I think, pre-pandemic. The
yeah,
movie.
'cause for me, and like, I mean, what really kept me and still keeps me like we're doing this today, which is amazing. Like to me, what I'm still really connected to is like the people that really found something in what we participated in, right? And again, I love the show. Like I really enjoyed the show when I was a kid. The first and second season, but I think also when you work on something for so long and it from the behind the curtains perspective, especially like growing up in it, the show itself is like a whole different experience and like recording the show, like all, that all becomes sort of a different experience. And one that was over, it was just kind of over, right? So what I am still very connected to is just like all the people that we got to meet and meet over the course of so many years. So to be honest, no, I haven't seen anything of Generation 5, but I hope people like it. Like I hope it lives on because it's really positively impacted people now. Even before, like in the 80s, people loved My Little Pony and like it was already a positive force back then. And of course it got more depth and it became even more meaningful on on an emotional level, the way that Lauren constructed this particular generation, Generation 4, was it had so much like so many lessons and so much depth to it. So I hope that continues with Generation 5 too. Um, but yeah.
Heck yeah, I mean, we have Atomic Cartoons are the is the studio working on Gen 5, and they're just right down the road
Mhm.
from Wild Brain, I believe it is now. Um,
Yes. Mhm.
and I mean, we have a lot of crossover, and from the movie, Boulder Media did a beautiful job with that. If you ever get a chance to see it, it's pretty cool. They did a really good job. We have
Yeah.
the YouTube series coming out. We have so much content all at once coming out. Hasbro's really putting a lot into this. Um,
Yeah.
and they
Totally.
know that people want to see Pony, and they know they want to keep it out there. Uh,
Yeah.
who knows what's around the corner? Speaking on
Yeah.
that though, and just it playing a role in people's lives, the fandom as a whole has contributed to so many things positively. As I mentioned in the beginning, as I'm sure you could agree, the fandom has played a big role in not only internet culture as a whole, but really defining what a community can be, through charity, through creativity, through all of these different medium. Uh,
Mhm.
you've got to see a lot of that firsthand with the convention as well. What are some of the things, though, for you personally, that you really find inspiring about the community outside of the creativity specifically, whether it be charity, whether it be helping one another, the transparency we have
Mhm.
with working with one another? Is there anything that you find sort of like defining to Pony that doesn't really exist or didn't really exist too much outside of it when it first started?
Mhm. Well, I just remember from day one recognizing how inclusive it was. That was the biggest common thread for me that when I say the positivity, that's usually what's like that's the basis of it to me. Is like the inclusivity and how many people would say that they just didn't like they felt so alone before they found this thing. They found this group of people. They bonded over this show and one of the biggest things that stood out to me was how many people in the military were watching it. Um they were watching it in the closet in like literally like hiding in the dark watching My Little Pony because everything was so dark and brown and black and everything was outside. It was just like so dark. And here they were like watching on their screen all of these colorful ponies talking about like life issues, right? And so those are some of the stories that stand out to me of just being like so wild. Like like, Navy SEALs and people who just like go through the worst training and they're being trained to kill people and they're just like finding solace in this show that we thought we were making for kids, right? Which just like I just love how like it also brought out the inner child and like, I met bronies that are 1 year olds and I've met bronies that are like 95, 98 maybe. Like it's just this huge spectrum of people who loved the colors, loved the themes, loved the inclusivity in the show too. Like the themes were about honesty and like, like accepting everyone's differences. And it was just really, it was very deep. Like again, Lauren constructed this idea, which is why it translated. We thought we were making a kid show, but then everyone loved it because there was something to like relate to in it, right? But the military bronies was like the ultimate extreme to me that I could have just never imagined. So to hear their story, I was like, holy crap, like that's wild. And hundreds of them, hundreds and hundreds and thousands probably. I don't know if I heard thousands of individual stories, but definitely hundreds, and I met thousands and thousands of military bronies. So that's particularly wild.
Yeah, it's such a crazy thing, and it is beyond wonderful to see. Um,
Yeah.
it is such a contrast. Like you wouldn't expect that at all. But when you hear some of their
Mhm.
stories and hear their experiences, it really goes without question why they're as dedicated as they are and why they have so much passion for the show that they do. Um,
Absolutely.
I had said we're going to talk about COVID, but I realized I have a couple more G4 questions if you don't mind. We still got a couple things to go
Great.
through if you got a second here.
Mhm.
We we had a couple of we had Big Jim on a couple weeks ago, and we got to ask him a little bit more directly, and he told us that a lot of the the finality with season 9 was some of the decisions there were kind of handed down from Hasbro. They weren't exactly maybe the decisions that the directors would have made themselves, but we got what we got, and we I think more or less were pretty happy with it. With regard to how the characters ended up, though, whether it be shipping, whether it be um, the characters, in your cases, the characters, the character that you play or the character that Claire plays, do you feel like how do you feel about how things ended? Does that match kind of what you were expecting? Are you happy? Is there anything you would have changed?
No, I haven't changed anything. I mean, it's interesting because obviously the show ended in season 9, but I felt like we got that satisfying development of our characters when the Cutie Mark episode happened. Like, because that was always growing up, like, that was going to be the epitome of these characters. It's like they're finally going to get this thing that they've been wanting for so long. And that was the biggest theme that people would talk to us about. Is like I've always felt like I just didn't know what to do with my life, and the fact that what they figure out they are destined to do is not just like one thing is super exciting, and was exciting to me too, because as a person, I feel like I'm always being tugged in so many different directions. Like I'm passionate about so many different things. And so as much as I feel like I know what I want to do in my life on a daily level, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, oh, I want to do this and that and that and that and this. And so the fact that these characters we were playing for so long ended up getting this whole metaphorical thing of like, we are just going to like help other people find out what they want to do is like, that's so cool. And then the way that just like came into fruition in the seasons following, I just think from that point on the story was kind of never ending and just sort of pushed them into their destiny, into their adulthood destiny to help people.
No joke. And I'm sure the reason you had mentioned you haven't seen Gen 5 is because we all know that you guys became alicorns and you're actually the rulers now, and you can't say anything about it because you guys are in it. So
Exactly.
I get it, but I mean, if you could like leak a little bit of that, if you could talk a little bit about what it's like for Apple Bloom to be the new Alicorn princess, we'd love to hear about that.
Well, Absalom actually becomes Darth Vader, unfortunately, so I can't get too far into that, but I'm your Apple father. And anyways, that's all I can leak for now. But um yeah, I mean, we did the last thing we did was well, the last thing I could talk about at least was the Pony Life episodes. That was in the pandemic, I think. We did the last one like last year. But other than that, I don't think I can leak anything. And whether that means I know anything or not. I'd love to see some overlord CMCs though as like epic villains. That would be pretty awesome.
think that'd be great. I think you guys would fit the role pretty well too. I'd be super excited to find that out. Um,
Totally.
we're gonna go ahead and say that that's confirmation that you guys are the new Alicorn overlords. Uh, we're
Great.
just gonna tell everybody that, so
Right.
that's good. That's good.
That's good that you have that. Good that you got that out of me.
I'm glad. I'm very happy. My biggest contribution here. The music though, that's always been, such a big staple of the community. Not the fandom music here in this case, but the actual show itself with Daniel and all the all the other incredible people who were involved. It was just a part of that lightning in a bottle. Do you have a
Mhm.
favorite show song? I know you've answered this probably a million times. I can't find your answer anywhere on the internet. I've searched everything, believe me.
It's
But I need to
probably a
know.
different answer every time.
That's fair.
Ultimately, after now all the seasons are done, if I have to pick one song, I don't know. They were all like Daniel is such a uber genius. Um, the most fun to sing was our crazy Cutie Mark Crusader talent show debacle.
Yeah.
And that session was Maddie and I literally just like screaming at each other for
Yeah.
an hour and a half. I feel like the way that we got to sing bad in that song was so much fun. And that was like early on again, like predates. There you go. There's a memory I can think of and visualize. But in between that, getting the role and the Brony revelation, there's a memory for sure in the first season. Wait, is that even the first season though, or is it the second
That's
season?
the first. That's the
It
first
is the first.
season. It is the first season. I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure.
yeah.
40 people are about to tell us in chat either way. So
Yes, exactly. You'll find out soon. But I mean, my mom's favorite, if she were to answer this question, she loved the Out on My Own song. And that was fun too, because Daniel and I just got to like do our pop song, kind of our pop ballad. And we didn't have to like stick within the style necessarily of the animation. And Daniel was able to get more like freedom over the years and try new things. And when a show goes on that long too, like you get to try all sorts of different styles. But I mean, I've known Daniel a very long time, like predating My Little Pony, and the man is just an endless machine of creativity. Like he just never runs out of ideas. They're always catchy. Every session I've ever left with him, I've been humming whatever we did. Like he's just a machine. It's amazing. And William, who is the other and half of that as well, was in his own right on that show. Like the background music was equally as spectacular and catchy as well.
yeah, too many good songs. I hate to ask anybody to pick their favorite, but you know, um, it,
Yeah.
I remember way back, probably I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, you had mentioned when you had worked with Claire
Rudy
in the
Fridge,
booth, in the long,
exactly.
long ago, way back.
When I was as
That
young as 10 years old, yeah.
of course you started as the singing voice for Sweetie Belle, and Claire
Mhm.
when she would sing at times had to do this like she had to sing poorly on purpose, and how you were like, I hate that she has to do that. She has such a wonderful singing voice. You said that she got to grow into her own. Uh,
Mhm.
do you remember much of that transition about her getting to be able to sing and what that experience was like for you to be able to watch that and to lose the singing voice of Sweetie Belle?
Yeah, I mean, I just remember, like, ultimately, I knew Claire was gonna be able to do it at some point, and I was just genuinely very excited for her. Because again, Claire and I were close friends as, like, basically fetuses. In a sense, when you're 6 years old, you're almost, like, as young as you can be when you're making a close friend,
Yeah.
right? And so I was just waiting for like that day when they were gonna tell me that Claire was gonna step in, and I don't even remember what season it was, or I think it was like maybe between 3 and 4 or 4 and 5 or something, but I just remember being like, "Great, like finally, here we go, Claire, like I'm so stoked for you," because her voice is beautiful, like her tone, and she didn't feel like she had like necessarily like all the control, but her tone from day one was really gorgeous. And Claire to this day has a very lovely singing voice. So I just remember being excited when they told me. I was like, "Yay!" Because we sing together too. Then Maddie and Claire and I got to actually like go in together, which was really fun. Because I did never liked that Claire couldn't necessarily join us for some of those sessions. Although a lot of the times you record them separately, anyways. But it was just nice to be able to do all those things together at that point.
No joke. And I know from following, I can't remember who, or where this came from, but I remember seeing videos of you guys personally on your own covering CMC and show songs, you and Claire doing like duets and the such. And both of you guys are, of
Yes.
course, incredibly talented. And I think that might have even been prior to her actually voicing or doing the singing voice of Sweetie in the show. And yeah, she
Right.
was wonderful at that point. Um,
Yeah, totally.
so as I said, COVID it was a bit of a knock for a lot of people or everybody
Now
really,
what
a lot of
is
people.
COVID?
Ooh. Um,
What's COVID? I don't know what that is.
it's this. Oh God, you got to put me on the spot. Um,
Ah, it's like some kind of amoeba thing. It's like I don't know. It's this. I haven't heard much about it. It hasn't. I know it's sort of circulated the news, but it vaguely rings a bell. Vaguely,
I mean,
only
a
vaguely.
lot of things go through the news, and that's, I mean, you don't really got to pay attention to a lot of it. So maybe it was one of those things.
I'll tell
Um,
you what. Me and COVID, like a week and a half ago, like two ships passing in the night. My grandparents came into town, and unfortunately, at like the second they landed back in Winnipeg, my grandpa was coughing, and he tested positive the next day. And somehow, somehow, we just like once again. I mean, we're all triple vax, and they were quadruple vax because they're seniors in Manitoba, up here in Canada, and Manitoba's pretty ahead of their like boosters, but yeah, anyway, so they're doing well in Manitoba. They're both sick, unfortunately, but I think they're recovering nicely. But yeah, we just like every time my family and I are just like, yeah, okay. Like all of my friends have been sick this year so far, and I'm just like, okay. I still don't know if I've ever had it, but I'm just dodging it like a bullet. So I feel like I'm the guy. I'm like Neo in the Matrix, right? All the COVID bullets are coming at me. But anyways, tell me your COVID questions.
well, best of wishes to your grandparents, and of course, now that you put it out there that you've been dodging COVID like Neo. You had to say it. You can't do that. You can't go saying that you can't do that. That's not good. You better knock on wood. You're
I
gonna
know.
be great
No,
though.
I got
It's all
caught
gonna be
again.
fantastic. I'll
Yeah,
grab the
yeah.
Lysol after this. We'll clean everything down. Um, well,
Spray my computer.
really, it was such a thing, and in entertainment especially. I get that I mean, I know in I believe Tara's case, she actually recorded pretty much everything in her home studio, so that might
Hmm.
not have been too crazy. But for the dynamic of everybody going into studio there and actually creating that magic directly alongside one another, that must have
Yeah.
been quite a change in culture. How did that affect you, not only with your involvement, because you said as Pony Life was going on at the time, but outside of that as well in your other projects and personal life? What was that transition like for you?
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, we're talking about My Little Pony right now. So when I think of voice acting, out of the three sort of big factions of what I do. I don't really think of them as being separate because music has always been such a big part of my acting career. So I just think of it as my one big blob of what I do. And it's eclectic, but it's my little thing of all random collections. But the paths have always intertwined acting and music. So I kind of think consider one big thing. But specifically voice acting and music would be the three categories you could split it up into. So like film and TV when I say acting, and then voice acting and music. Voice acting out of those three things was probably the least affected because obviously we weren't able to do those group sessions for like the first 8 months, year. But we were still going in, which was a lot more than most under industries could say. Like by I think I had my first in-person session in like May of 2020, June of 2020. And of course, it was this whole procedure and like one engineer, but we know the engineers in the studio in Vancouver. So it's just like nice to like see see them behind the glass. But if you think about like logistically a voiceover, which is just kind of the same as like a recording studio, recording studio, um, you literally got like it all set up perfectly. You're gonna have the engineer and the people in this room, and you're gonna have the voice actors in that room. So as long as everyone's like masked up when you go in, and they'll like text you to come in, and the engineer would like hide in the engineering room while you come in, and then we didn't have headphones. We were just like standing there in a giant room with like a fan blowing, and we turn it off before the take, and like it worked. Like it was already kind of formatted for that in a way. It wasn't as fun, obviously, but we were also already all like, and not us, but like the studios were already prepped to use that technology of patching people in. So the directors and producers, that were overseas before were patched in, but whether they were like a mile away, it didn't matter. They didn't have to come into the studio anymore. They could just be in our ears. Or in the case of at the beginning when it was very extreme, we weren't allowed to have headphones. They were just like in the room with us, which was kind of funky. But yeah, so voice acting was not as affected, honestly, other than just not being able to see people. That was really sad, as it was just in general. Film and TV was, I mean, that poor industry just sort of shut down completely. I had a show that ultimately then moved to the UK because we were like, I think the day that COVID like restrictions started in Vancouver was the day before my costume fitting for this great new role I was really excited about. So that was disappointing, but nowadays film and TV, it's because it's a massive machine of people working together. They've got their COVID regulations really sorted out. So now it's not so bad. Music, I think, is the industry that's struggling the most because everything's changed. No one knows what's going on, and most of the industry is like revolving around one app, right? Like TikTok is the name of the game, right? And it's changing lengths of songs. It's changing genre. It's changing artistry. It's changing business. It's changing every facet of music. So, like I said before, I'm just kind of like, okay, staying patient, writing like 10 songs a week and just like vibing with the creativity and waiting to kind of make my next strategy with just how I want to approach music in the coming years as it looks so different now. But yeah.
Wasn't that aware of the music industry side of things. Oh, everything lagged here just a moment. Let it catch up.
Oh,
Up,
hey,
up. Are we
can
here?
you hear me?
I'm good.
Can you hear
Fantastic.
me?
Can you hear me?
I do. I can hear you.
Wonderful. Uh,
Whew.
you heard it here, kids. Download TikTok immediately. If you don't have TikTok, then there's no point. Just get offline. Um, I don't have a TikTok. Is that really what's happening over there? Are you guys like defining music as a genre, or
Wild.
like as a
It's
what?
changing the format so much too. Like all songs are like 2 minutes long now that are like pop songs, right? Um, I really like TikTok. I think it's, I mean, before the pandemic, it was kind of a whole different thing. But in the pandemic, all the millennials joined it, and it ended up being like this very creative, sort of real app. At least the everyone's feed is different, so the different experience. I deleted it a couple weeks ago just because I don't like what it does to me psychologically because my brain gets so overwhelmed and I just don't like the endless like it's just psychologically it distracts me so much because it's just sort of this endless entertainment and I find that to be a bit overwhelming, but I do like TikTok. Um and I just wanted to kind of step away from it. Just personally, I just like watch, you know what I mean? I was on TikTok for a while and really enjoyed it, but then I like fell out of habit with it and I'm honestly I mean, I don't know. These days I'm pretty bad with social media just because I think the world's opening up again and like I just so much rather see people in person than be
Yeah.
on my phone. So that's why again I feel like I'm just kind of like like a hot breather and just to like get to see people again and then because ultimately social media what I love about it is that it's like an extension of being able to like connect with the people that you've just seen and connected with in person the really like meaningful way. But also it's got, also so many positives still for sure.
No joke. So you heard it here first, kids. Uninstall TikTok. Get rid of it. It's not good. If you have it, what are you doing?
Conflicting opinions.
One of the two. I guess whatever suits your needs. But no, that's incredibly important to keep in mind. That not to let social media or media in general become so encompassing over your life that you're not able to operate outside of that. Because certainly in my case too, I'll let myself go crazy and I'll watch those 3 hour long meme videos on YouTube, and
Mhm.
uh, then I'm suddenly unemployed and homeless, and it's like, oh, how does it happen so quick?
Well,
And
and
all
that's
that
the
might be an
thing.
extreme.
Yeah. But it's not like, I used to think of myself like I don't have a phone addiction. Like I'm not on my phone that much. But the way that even the amount of time I was spending on my phone was changing how my brain worked outside of that was really important because I saw my focus going downhill. And I'm like, I'm a very focused person normally, and I just felt like because it's dopamine spikes. It's very dangerous in a sense. Like if we're not aware of it. When we're aware of it, that's one thing. But like, yeah, it's not even if you think you don't have a phone addiction, it's changing all of our psychology, whether we like it or not. You know, like whether we want to admit it and whether how extreme it is, that's one thing. But like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Fair enough. I have a couple more questions here, but if you would like, I would like to go ahead and try to get the audience rolling on Q&A, get some of that going, because
Yeah,
they're
no
gonna
rush, no rush.
they're gonna burn the whole place down if we don't get those going. They're excited. Um,
Awesome. Well, I'm here for as long as you need me.
don't say that. We'll make this 5 hours. Uh, for real though.
Fair enough.
Do you need
I'm
a
here.
break or
Or
anything by chance? Is there
no,
any?
no, no,
Do we need to bring
no,
in?
no, no, no.
Send you
Unless
guys a
you need to
pizza?
open one of those 102 water bottles over there, I'm good to barrel through here.
Oh, that's good. We'll get to them eventually.
Yeah.
I had to hang up my redneck curtain. That's what we call that here in the South. Try to make it a little bit more presentable. Um, I figured if people are going to be coming and watching My Little Pony interviews, then to see a brony in a basement, like it's not out of character. You know, it really fits that, like on the nose. And I feel like I got
So
it. I
true.
nailed it.
It's very
Uh,
meta, like you were saying. You got to be in the part.
exactly. That's why I
Mhm.
have the hat on. I take my glasses off. I'll occasionally smoke cigars, lean back in the chair. I don't even smoke. I just, that's what you got to do to make it in the industry, and I'm willing to do what it takes.
So true.
What you got to do. Uh, so we really do have a ton of questions, and for everybody watching, I know you've been doing this for 36 years, whatever you said now, and that's you've heard a lot of these questions. So we appreciate you taking the time to answer a lot of these because people are very excited to hear things. And now that it's been a couple years since Gen 4's ended, they've
Yeah.
had some stuff brewing.
I know. I'm like, I might be rusty on some of these questions too. So like, I'm excited for everyone. Just like throw them at me. Throw them at me. It's like testing old quizzes or something.
They're going as we get these rolling. People are already questioning the 36 years thing. I gotta be careful when I joke. I don't know if the nuance of it doesn't peel right or what, but I have
Someone thought
everybody
I was
thinking.
last week. You wouldn't be the first person, or no one would be. Which I take as a compliment too. Like that person in the session last week was like, "You're 32," and no, I'm 22. But thanks. Just take a decade off.
Uh,
It's not an insult.
I take it as a compliment. I have people thinking that Seth is 54 years old. I started this rumor, and I was joking, but it caught off. Like I have a couple of the voice actors. We have do you know who Sean Keller is by chance?
Maybe, yeah, I think so.
Maybe there's this gentleman who came in. He posted a couple pony videos. I hadn't seen them, and when I started the interview series, I started asking people, "Hey, who do you guys want to hear from?" And they were like, "Sean Keller," and I was like, "All right." So I got a hold of this guy, looked him up, saw his videos. I'm like, "Dang, he does animations." I'm like, "These are really good. These are pretty cool." Yeah, I'll talk to him. So I message him. We get to talking. We finished the conversation, and I was just like, "Something doesn't seem right here. This is really curious." So I Google Sean Keller just out of curiosity, and it pops up IMDb, and I'm like, "Okay." I pull that up, and like starting, I think it's like in the 80s. Like we have like lead animator like Little Mermaid, Hunchback of Notre Dame, The
No
Black
way.
Cauldron, and he's doing pony stuff now. He's like one of the leading industry animators who now does My Little Pony content. He's right now,
Oh,
as we
wow.
speak, doing a My Little Pony virtual convention where people are showing him like
Wow.
pony videos and stuff. Super cool stuff like that.
Brilliant.
I forgot where I was going with that, but isn't that
I love
cool?
it.
Isn't that
It is
awesome?
cool.
And he
It's
just popped
totally
up.
cool.
He just popped
I
up in
love
the
it.
last year. Brand new
Huh?
talent. Um, just had to put some attention on him for a minute because good stuff. If you ever get a chance to check that out, that dude's incredible. Anybody
Yeah.
remember why I brought that up? Anybody here? No? Okay. Well,
I can't help it, but I liked it.
it was good.
I'm always willing to
Um,
go down a rabbit hole.
I get motivated about these things. I
I
love
feel you.
seeing new blood, and I get even more excited when the people come in and they just knock it out of the park. They're coming with so much talent. Um,
Totally.
Conventions. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that was the point originally I was trying to get to. I don't know how, but have you been doing any of those recently? Do you have any plan in the future? You still planning on participating in those as long as they'll have you?
I mean, I think it will depend on like where and when, right? Just like it was before. I think it's a little more complicated now. I mean, although we're the stage we're at right now, where it finally feels like after a couple months, like COVID's and just the way it's affecting us socially and travel wise is kind of settled. But at the same time, it makes me cautious. And my friends and I were talking about this yesterday. I think we're like we're all just kind of waiting for like for it to like bounce back because it's like, oh, it's going so well now, and it's like, okay, but when is it, that next wave or whatever? Because a pandemic takes a long time to weed
Yeah.
away as it becomes a part of just kind of what we have to deal with in society and in the medical community, and so and just our immune system and how like how influenza became just naturally a part of our life after a period of time. But anyways, that's getting into all that, which we don't need to. But I mean, yeah, I like I still the prospect of going to conventions for sure. It's so interesting because it feels like it's been so long now. But what I loved again about conventions was meeting people, reconnecting with people now would be a big thing for going to conventions, like seeing people I haven't seen in a long time. If they were, I'm sure even if it wasn't a pony convention, like I'm sure I would run into people. I went to, especially the States, enough times, enough dozens of times that I'm sure I would get to see people I haven't seen in a while, which would be awesome. And the traveling aspect as well. I was just about to go to Australia, I believe. Or no, not just about, but it was scheduled later in the year in 2020 or something. Loved Australia. I loved going to the European conventions, and again, those conventions are very sentimental in the sense of you would see so many friendly faces and people you haven't seen in a long time. So yeah, for sure. I mean, it's so weird after like such a long break, but they're starting up again for sure. So yeah.
It's all the talk right now. People are getting excited for them. EQD's prepping to start going to them again. We haven't been to conventions since a little bit before the pandemic, that's for sure. So getting back into
Yeah.
things is exciting. The whole chat was able to finally remind me. I told Sean Keller as well as all these other people. Seth is 54 years old. Man is 34 years old. I have everybody in the chat, brand new
People
people, calling him 54 years old now.
wow.
And I didn't mean for it to become.
Such a wise vibe then to people, which is nice.
Mm, they they definitely need to be a little bit more careful. Uh,
Yeah.
I meant it in good humor, but it's now a thing that most everybody on the server believes Seth
Ah.
to be a senior
Oh, so
citizen.
this is your fault. I see. Okay, I see now.
Well,
This is your joke that's gotten out of hand.
yeah,
Ah,
unfortunately. So that's a thing. I got to be careful when I say things because I don't know
it'll stick with people.
if it's gonna stick because I deliver a little bit dry sometimes. I don't know. I don't understand conversation. But
Seems not good irony, but I love irony. I see it every time, so
it's good.
I dig it. I dig irony.
So we got some really good questions here. Some really 4D next level meta questions. Really, I'm sure stuff you've never heard before, and I'd love to jump into some of these. Um,
Existential, never heard before questions. I'm excited.
so I guess we'll start with a short, simple one here. Uh, Apple Bloomster, AB. She never got shipped at the end of the show. Should she have found her special sun pony? Uh, who might that special sun pony be? Did Apple Bloom have her eye on anybody growing up?
No, I don't. I never thought about that with Apple Bloom. I don't know. I just always like saw her as this very independent creature. Not saying like I'm not saying she was asexual or anything, but necessarily I just don't know if Apple Bloom would have ever. I mean, partly we were kid characters, right? But
Well, that's a great point.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I think whoever Appleblom would have ended up with, I would have been totally fine with, but I never thought about that to be honest. I assure you other people did and told me what they were thinking was the right idea. And I was like, "You know what? You do you. Like all ideas are welcome except for the ones that aren't."
That is completely understandable.
You know? When you're playing a kid character, right?
No
You know?
joke.
But no, I mean, with when you're watching a show, like, people. that stuff's fun. So as long as it's appropriate, like there's no harm in it. But no, I never had any thoughts about that, to be literally completely honest.
No, absolutely, and I mean, that's not a super uncommon thing. So I'm hearing apple bloom and gummy. Got it. I mean, that's fine. That's a
Yes.
really good ship.
Like a platonic, like live the rest of their lives
Of
together.
course, of course.
And go on adventures. I love it. I love it.
Oh, it looks like we got that question twice. People really wanted to know.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I
Amazing.
understand.
Who's your favorite background pony aside from Applejack?
Ooh.
Sorry, Applejack fans, that was uncalled
It
for.
took me like 5 seconds to register what you said. Um, uh, well, the thing is that some of my favorite background entities ended up kind of being things later on, like
They
in the
all did.
episode.
There were no
Like they
background
all
ponies at
do
the
that,
end. Yeah.
right? Exactly. Like everyone had a story by the end, which was so great. But I remember my answer to this question, and I honestly kind of forget the context of it. But The Rock. The Rock, I think it was, I guess, Mod Pie's Rock or something. That was always my answer. I was like, that's my favorite background pony, is The Rock.
Boulder, I think was his
The
name.
Boulder!
Boulder.
Boulder, yes.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the one. So there's my answer to bring up a rusty old memory. There you go.
That's a very, very good one. A rusty memory. Oh, God. I just rewatched the entirety of Friendship is Magic a couple of weeks ago, or I
Ooh,
guess it's been a month now, to prep for some of these
when the
interviews, so
wheels are oiled for you.
was all
Yeah,
fresh. So
ni-
that's the only
nice.
reason I know a lot of these things. It's crazy to think that this was something that was so defining. And although the community, it's its own bag of worms, you could never watch the show and just spend all of your time in pony content, or brony content, you'll never run out of stuff to find. Um,
Yeah.
but still yet, I did love the experience. Somebody asked, did
So,
you find it odd that Diamond Tiara's character wasn't used more after they redeemed her?
yeah, I guess I never. Well, that's right. She had such an epic. I don't know. Maybe it was because like she's such a different character after that. Again, like that was such a pivotal moment. When I mentioned earlier that I felt like in a way that was kind of our perfect ending, and then we just kind of got to see what happens after like the happy ever after part of our characters. Maybe that was kind of the same with Diamond Tiara, but we have no relationship with the writers in our voiceover projects other than of course with a show like this where you end up traveling together and you go to conventions and you meet these people that otherwise you would never get to see. But also a lot of the writers that we ended up like knowing so well didn't necessarily write so much later in the show. But yeah, that's too bad because I loved when that happened. I thought that was really great. It's like bullies can become like, everyone's, I don't know, everyone's got that redemption story that's possible.
She certainly had hers, and Diamond was kind of a Cutie Mark Crusader antagonist. She kind of fit that, and that was
Mhm.
um, are you on Cameo? Do you do that?
I am on Cameo. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. For those
I
who, there's some questions kind of about like, hey, if I ever had 50, I mean, I'm paraphrasing. If I ever had $50 burning a hole in my pocket, could I get you to say that line of Darth Vader's voice again? Something like that.
oh,
Would you talk about Cameo a little bit and just talk about that for the people who might be interested in checking that out?
sure, yeah. My cousin Jeff got me onto Cameo like years ago at a Christmas dinner. He was like, "Michelle, you have to be on Cameo." I was like, "Okay." And now it's so cool because as like, a lot of voice actors are on Cameo. I think most of us,
Yeah,
even
most of
on
you.
this uh at least now at this point, I think many cast members will probably be on it, but yeah, it's fun. It's nice to I try to do longer ones because I mean, I with any of those things like I don't it's an homage to a character that's like I'm contributing towards something that's bigger, and like I just want to like if someone's asking me to do like a thing in a character voice, like I'm happy to do that kind of stuff, and I'm happy to wish like 7-year-olds a happy birthday and whatever character's voice, especially Apple Bloom, and like I really enjoy doing little cameos for people, and I try and make them as like special as possible because it's always a pleasure when I get to do those.
Heck yeah. I got a couple more coming up here, but before I do, if I'm not mistaken, this is going. I don't know where I'm pulling this from. But if I'm not mistaken, at least Andrea, maybe Claire, and you, all three of you, were on Dinosaur Train, weren't you? Is that the name of it even?
Yeah. Well, Claire was one of the main characters and still is because they've started up Dinosaur Train again
Oh,
many years
really?
later. Yeah, the new seasons. Claire and her dad Ian and back in the day, like one of my friends, Erica Shea. It was another show where they cast kids, which was so great. And I guess starred on the show a couple times. And then Andrea, I don't know if Andrea was. I think Andrea was the same kind of as me, was maybe like guest starred a couple times. Because I think the main character it's one of those shows that like they go through different adventures every time. So it was like yeah, and Ashley was in like one of the episodes I was in. Ashley played my mom, which was funny.
Really?
Ashley is like at different points in time. Ashley and I have been all the different types of family members. um, but yeah, Dinosaur Train, another great show, another great show.
Heck yeah, just had to pull that from the ether. I don't know where that came from, but fun show.
Yes.
Somebody had asked, what is some of your favorite Apple Bloom quotes that you had to record? Maybe some iconic things that you've probably said a million times at this point. Any favorites?
I mean, the one that always stands out to me, I never felt like Apple Bloom had necessarily too many iconic lines, or at least ones that I could remember. So my go-to is always like, "Aren't you gonna stay for brunch?" Because that was my like first line ever, and it's episode 1. It's a big, big hit, big expression that it's very easy to say. I'd write it on all, people's cards, and a couple people have "Aren't you gonna stay for brunch" specifically tattooed. Lots of different Apple Bloom tattoos, but many "Aren't you gonna stay for brunches" specifically. Um, Sweet applesauce was one that I personally felt very passionate about including into the show, and they let me say "Oh, sweet applesauce" on many occasions on my own merit. So I definitely sneaked in, I believe, a couple of "Oh, sweet applesauces" at some point or another. Um, there's a couple of really weird sound effects I made at different times. And I know this because Gabe would always point them out to me, and he would like record 3-second clips and send them to me, and like Apple Bloom would just I don't know, she had so many weird sound effects that like not necessarily I can't think of words, but like she'd just make like ooh sounds like weird. I don't know, because you do so much walla when you're a voice actor, especially in episodics, because they never know when they're gonna need something. And so I don't know, I always had fun with her wallas and like her non her non-spoken reactions. There's if you've just rewatched on the show, you might want to rewatch it again just for those little moments, Alistair, and find all my weird sounds in my episodes.
That sounds pretty entertaining, I'm not gonna lie. I have a feeling that there's a YouTube clip somewhere that's just all of that, all compiled into one just long
Oh
stretch.
God, if there is, I need you to send it to me. If you
Likely.
find that, that would be my favorite thing to see.
I gotcha. Gabe himself might have it, I'm not sure.
He
Um,
probably made it.
Fair enough. The next question I have here, and this is a tricky one, audience, be careful. Have you ever read any fanfics, any pony fanfics in your time?
Be honest, as in general, and as like a watcher of shows, I've never been a huge fanfic person, just because I am in when you're in the industry, I'm just always so interested to see like the product that comes out of like everyone's the joint brain of everyone's work, whether it goes right or wrong. So if I'm watching a show and it like a plot line doesn't go the way I want it, or the characters don't go the way I want it, it's like that's interesting to me. And so to like read, I don't know, like it's just not it's just literally a personal it's just a personal preference thing, honestly. But I think it's cool. Like I think it's cool that again, like the music was more the thing for me because that's more the stuff that I listen to outside of like a core show, and I don't watch a ton of um film and TV necessarily, other than like stuff I want to like really sit down for and or just kind of play in the background. But um I lost my train of thought. I really, yeah, no, I was so like I really loved all the like fan songs and stuff because I'm more music oriented in that sense. But I think it's really cool that so many, especially if we're gonna talk specifically about My Little Pony, like um these characters take on different lives and they are interpreted differently by different people and they mean so much to individuals. So as long as it's like appropriate, I think it's great. It's creative, you know?
Fair enough. Definitely, certainly appropriate is the best. Um,
Yeah.
Somebody here asks, has there ever been a celebrity that you have met that you were surprised to be able to meet?
Hmm. Surprised. I don't know. Surprised is an interesting word. I mean, to meet. Are you talking about like to work with or to just like randomly see on the street? Like outside of
I'm gonna say they
work?
mean one or the other, whichever
Hmm.
one you could answer, maybe. Maybe just random encounters, maybe just through opportunity of what you've done through Pony or otherwise professionally.
Yeah. I mean, I got to go to the Disney headquarters when I was a kid before My Little Pony came out. No, that's not true. No, that is true. Wait. How old was I when I No, that was before My Little Pony. I was in a Disney movie called The Search for Santa Paws. It was one of the Air Bud movies.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, and I went down to the premiere and of course, as a kid, like whether you're a kid in the States and you were watching Disney Channel or you up in Canada and you were calling it Family Channel, which was just Disney Channel, but for some reason in Canada we called it Family Channel. It was the thing, right? We didn't have iPads. It was like, we were kind of literally the last generation that was just having usually like this one source of media growing up that was just kind of like injected into our veins. So Hannah Montana and Wizards of Waverly Place and That's So Raven. And I remember like walking through the Disney studios before the premiere and like Mitchell Musso was in the movie and I again loved Hannah Montana, so I met Mitchell Musso and at the time as a 9-year-old I was just so stoked.
Yeah.
Um a bunch of other people had come to the premiere and stuff and I saw a couple people like going through the different sets of a bunch of other people that weren't even necessarily in the movie. So I remember that being a really fun time as a kid to just go to the headquarters of what I really only was my main source of entertainment growing up. Because again, I just feel like we were that last generation that my mom's generation like had 3 channels on the TV, but as a kid, like we kind of had Teletoon and well, we had YTV as well, but I was more of a Family Channel kid. I did like iCarly though, but anyways, it was just like the headquarters of my childhood.
Oh, iCarly, good memories.
Right.
I've a quick break here. I have done a little bit of research into Canadian culture, and I've learned some things like there's some sort of maybe mandate or law in place that like requires certain studios to, or maybe radio. I'm not entirely sure to what degree, but there's like a requirement to play like a certain percentage of Canadian specific content. Is that a thing? All these
Yeah,
little quirks, and it's really interesting just getting into Canadian media. One of the most interesting things that I've found through my exposure to some buddies who live up there is a show called Letterkenny. I don't know if you've ever seen that show.
I feel sad to say as a Canadian I have not. I'm so sorry.
Oh, well, it's very representative, I hope. Very funny show. Um, okay, curious. I wasn't sure. I feel like, of course, that's usually how that goes, right? I figured you were gonna be like, of course, Letterkenny. That's like our national TV show. Very
It's
popular
so
show here in the States.
very different. Like we're so, Vancouver, like there's Western culture almost, and then there's like Eastern culture, in the sense that they're not like socially very different, but just like maybe the media is a little bit different in terms of like there's shows I feel like are really popular in the East, but maybe don't reach here. Like we're not necessarily the heart of Canada. We're kind of separated in a way. So maybe Letterkenny is like very popular in Ontario, or maybe it's popular here, and I'm just not in touch with it. Uh, but
Interesting.
yeah,
Good to know. I figured with all these mandates and laws forcing you to consume more Canadian content, you
yeah.
might have seen it. Somebody
Like,
here had
they're
asked.
laws they're mostly, like, for, like, radio stations and stuff, just so that because we're so heavily influenced by you guys in the States, like, just to have our own kind of creative voices is kinda why they do it, but it's not like most people still watch like a lot of American shows, and like you're hard pressed to find a Canadian that like only watches Canadian shows. If they do, good for them. Like that's a commitment. But yeah, that's interesting.
Heck yeah. Somebody has a very, very interesting question here. Um, it's kind of goofy, but they want to know if you still remember Final Draft.
Of course.
Of course.
Yes, final draft. And when I said that friend that was the middleman between my connection to
Oh,
Andy and gave this final draft.
okay.
Yeah, it was Mike.
Okay.
Yeah, I loved Mike, and he again another person I just have not seen in so long.
Same here.
But introduced me to a lot of people, and who I ended up having very deep creative connections with. So yeah.
Okay, cool beat. I mean, it's glad to hear that. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've
Mhm.
heard from Drafty. Somebody had asked, was there, or is there rather, a specific type of genre or project that you wish you did, or you wish you could do more of moving forward?
I wish there was more comedy in Vancouver. We don't have a lot of comedy shows that come here. Um, we're getting a little bit more diversified these days. Before, especially in film and TV, it was mostly just like Lifetime and Hallmark and some sci-fi stuff. But now a lot of Netflix projects are coming up, and really interesting independent movies, as well as big productions and big budget stuff. Uh, so it's getting more diversified, but I would certainly love to do more comedy, because as much as I love drama, I think like when you get a comedy show, because I don't know, like cartoons are comedic a lot of the time, like animation, but in a weird way, so much of the I don't know, like the only way that you can really like bring so much like creative comedy to a show is when they let you have a lot of freedom, which is actually what they did with Pony Life, which was really cool, because it was so fun to watch all of these adult voice actors that usually have to be subdued to like fit closer to the script. Someone like Tabitha, who's just like the funniest person maybe I've ever met in my entire life and had the pleasure of knowing. Because when she's just able to just like rattle off random crap, it's the funniest thing ever. So if you have a show that lets you do that, I mean, I'm not necessarily the best at improv, but to be in that space of just people being free and like doing whatever is so fun.
Heck yeah. I you mentioned not a whole lot of comedy in the Canadian scene. Letterkenny is one of the funniest
And
shows
better
I've ever
now.
seen in my life.
Okay, there you go. If you
Letterkenny.
watched Schitt's Creek was huge. That was really important because it like brought Canadian comedy to like a worldwide
It's a great show. Yeah.
stage. Which was actually so funny story. The CBC show I was a series regular on, Strange Empire. It was that year. It was between Strange Empire and Schitt's Creek that CBC kind of had to decide which show to keep going with. And I'm so glad they chose Schitt's Creek, because it ended up again like being this huge important cultural phenomenon, and I love that show. So that's my little inside anecdote about that, but it's I'm so glad they made the right choice for sure. As fun as our
Heck yeah.
show was, it probably needed to be on an American network, not like Canada's Family Network. It was pretty gritty, like Western. But anyways,
Fair enough. You made the Apple Bloom Darth Vader comment, so now we got all these Star Wars questions. People are dying to know: are you a Star Wars fan? Are you a Star Wars fan? Do you like the series?
I am. I
Specifically,
love Star Wars. I wish I was. I wish I was more into it. Like I'm in my lifetime, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. A huge, huge, huge Harry Potter fan. Huge Marvel fan. Although nowadays it's just kind of like, it's fallen out of touch a little bit. I think probably No Way Home might be considered the last really good Marvel movie. But growing up with like starting at Iron Man 1 and then leading up to Endgame, we all had that experience of just like our whole childhood like wrapping up in two big epic movies, right? Um so I love Star Wars. I've seen all the movies. Seen the new ones when they come out. Um but I wish I was like more wish I was more involved. So when I went to Disneyland recently, and obviously like Star Wars land, they're so incredible. And I just wish I like knew all the I wish I knew all the terms, and like I wish I knew what aircraft I was looking at when it wasn't just like the Millennium Falcon, and like, because if it were Marvel, I would, or if it were Harry Potter, I would, but like not necessarily with Star Wars, and I don't really know why. Maybe it's just not like I missed obviously the nostalgic of it, like the nostalgia of it, because I was just kind of in between the new movies that just came out, and then like the, you know, Hayden Christensen and the 1, 2, and 3. But I don't know. I love it though. My brother and I used to watch Star Wars every Christmas. The Hayden Christensen one, like the ones that everyone hated, we kind of liked for some reason. We like to make fun of because some of the scenes there were so funny. But yeah, I don't know. I do love Star Wars though. I would just wish I was a little bit more like invested in it, you know?
Fair enough. No, I mean, there's plenty of great things. That's one of the things that I had gotten wrapped up in and got super invested in, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of fun stuff. But I've got to take you literally here for a moment. You had said if it was like, you know, you wish that you could point out a starship and like the Millennium Falcon be like, I know the name of that, like you would be
Yeah.
able to do with Harry Potter. Please name a starship in Harry Potter because I'm very curious now. I don't remember seeing a starship, and now you got me curious. I want to know, what did I miss?
Well, you missed Harry Potter 5.5.
In space?
Not a lot of people
Is that a
saw it.
musical?
It's set on Mars, Alistair.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
this whole side plot where Hermione and Neville go up to Mars. It's radical.
I would
Because
love to see that.
They have to save Molly. They have to save Molly Weasley. She's up there, and they can't find her very easily because of her red hair on the surface of Mars. It was a difficult journey, but they did it. So, anyways, you gotta watch it. I'll send it to you. 5.5.
Glad they pulled
Yeah.
through. I mean, I'm still curious to hear one of the names of those ships, but I'll have to look into that later because that's
Well, you should, because
incredible.
I'm disappointed in you that you haven't. So
That's fair.
I'll look in Letterkenny. You gotta watch Harry Potter 5.5. There you
I
go.
will do that. I promise you that.
Great.
Somebody had asked, do you play video games? And if so, what you play? Call of Duty? You 1v1 people?
I am very religiously only a Halo, Portal, and Nintendo Wii person. I have
Really?
literally
Halo.
almost played no other games outside of those games. Gabe was the reason I got into Halo and Portal. When
Okay,
he
that makes sense.
Vancouver, you know, he'd come over and play Halo all the time. We'd play Halo very, very religiously, and because the storyline, honestly, that was the biggest thing for me, is that I didn't really get into video games that didn't have like a lot of storyline, and Halo's kind of as good as you can get in that sense. And then Portal 2 is really fun, and very much a thinking game too. I was very good at Halo though, and anyone that's seen me play Halo will attest to that. And I was so frustrated because Gabe and his brother Nathaniel were so good at it, and they were playing it for a very long time. And so when I first played it, as a kid, I didn't like not being good at games. I was very competitive because I grew up in a family that like played board games, especially very, very intensely. So I was always like, okay, I'm going to get really good at this, and then I'm going to kick their asses. And that's what I did for years after. I just destroyed them. We'd play these different multiplayer games with this one game that they still play. Which is called King of the Hill, and you like take the percentage up to 200, like gravity up, and I got so good with the maps that I would kill them as they respawned. Like they wouldn't even respawn, and a giant rocket would be coming towards them before they died. And I played all the games like multiple times. Like I'd play them over and over again on Legendary, and like I loved Halo. It was just like my little escape for sure. I haven't played it in a long time, but Portal's great. And then Nintendo Wii, like I still. Do you know Tanks, Alistair? Do you know the game Tanks?
Of course, I still got a Wii.
I finally, and I'm not even kidding you, when I moved into my apartment last year and I brought my Wii with me, and I was like, okay, you know what? This is a lifelong dream of mine. That's still in the kind of COVID era. I'm going to get to level 100 of Tanks, because you know, like you beat 20, and then you can go back, you can beat 100 levels, and it's like this thing that everyone wants to do. It's literally like a stupid like bucket list lifetime goal of mine as a child, and I freaking did it last fall.
That's impressive.
Afterwards, I was like, my God, how anticlimactic and how unfulfilling, and yet so fulfilling at the same time.
Of course.
Childhood fantasies come into fruition. You have to really work for it. You have to kill many, many a tank, you know, but you get there eventually.
I didn't even
So
know it went to level 100. That's
it does.
dedication. I'm very proud of you.
It does. When you get to level 50, you find these like black tanks that are oh no, not no, they're the white what there's like this one that you get in 50 where's yeah, it's the black ones and they're like the green ones, but they're super, super, super fast and they can like it gets wild. It gets wild, Alistair. It's one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life.
I'll take your word
So
for it. You should put these on the internet. You should do Twitch streaming, do VTubing. I'm sure people would love to see that.
you want to know how long it took me? Because it's so long and you can't start over again. It takes like 2.5 hours to do. I can't believe how much time I invested in it. Literally, like, yeah, you gotta watch like a YouTube video of someone like completing tanks because it's a wild ride. It's very stressful.
I'll have to do that. You best believe that I'm going to. We're doing party rooms at all the conventions here moving forward for the next. We're just gonna do all of them.
Tanks.
I'm gonna have an
Do
Xbox.
tanks.
I'm gonna have an Xbox with me with Halo on it at every single con
Yeah.
I'm going to, waiting for you to
There
show
you
up
go.
and pwn some noobs
We
if
did
you
a
think you
Mario
can bring that
Kart
game.
competition once. Another game I was like emphatically very passionate about. I could play
Good
that game
game.
upside down. I literally, my friend and I played that game upside down as kids, and so at that convention, got first place, of course. I won the title that year somewhere. I think it was actually in Europe. It was in the UK. We did that. Maybe
We'll see.
I have a memory in
We'll see.
Manchester or something. Yeah.
Think
So
we're gonna
yeah,
take it
exactly.
easy
I'm
on
sure
you.
exactly. I have a feeling you would be good competition. That's for sure.
We'll have to see. Now, somebody had mentioned in the chat here. I would love to hear Apple Bloom do some Master Chief quotes, and the only thing that came through my mind was the whole like multi kill, like Kilimanjaro, and all like the multi kill. And
Yes.
what would that sound like? Would you do some Apple Bloom multi kill? And
For sure. I also like I could hear Apple Bloom being like the Gruntwalla as well. Because her vocal tone, her nasally vocal tone would just like vibe with the grunts very well. But yes, Kilimanjaro would be very good. Kilimanjaro would be a good Apple Bloom one.
that's ridiculous. We're gonna see that modded into a game here before you know it. That's legendary.
Exactly. Legendary. Legendary. Not as epic. Not as Kilimanjaro.
Kilimanjaro is pretty epic. Just off rip. That's what the kids say these days. Off rip, right?
I don't know what the kids say ever.
I
So
try to keep
you
up
tell
with
me.
the lingo. It's pretty lit.
Yes, lit. I don't know if that's like fresh still or if that's like 5 years old now. Again, I wouldn't know, Alistair. I apparently Slay is very big right now. I'm still on Groovy Pants. I'm very much on Groovy Pantaloonies. That's my thing. So that tells you all you need to know.
I'm a big stand-up comedy fan, so I'll listen to albums way back in the day, as far back as I can find them. And there's so many
Yeah.
comedians that use these fancy phrases, and they have so much fun language that they work with. And like Norm Macdonald's one
Yeah.
of my favorites. He's always coming on, or he was always coming on, saying wacky stuff. And he would always say he would bring back phrases from like the 30s. So I'm always trying to bring them back, make them fresh, because you can't let it die. There's some fun stuff out there.
Oh, totally.
It was answered here on the blog, but for people who might be curious, specifically, how old were you when you first went in to record your lines for My Little Pony initially?
9 years old.
Wow. I was still in elementary school at 9 years old. I don't even know if I knew how to tie my shoes.
I like the Velcro ones better anyways.
Pretty fancy.
They were.
I just had Heelys. That's wore them everywhere I went.
Oh, don't even talk. Don't even. I loved Heelys so much, Alistair. But I smashed my head open once at a mall because I went down like a ridge at the end, and I didn't see it, and it like sent me flying into this metal pole, and my head was bleeding in the mall. My mom was not. She was very stressed, understandably. So I don't know if I wore my Heelys much outside of the house after that.
That's fair. Well, you could still get them if you ever want to have like a little bit of fun. Show up at a con one day and just go scooting down the road. I mean,
that would actually be a really great place to wear Heelys. I never thought of that.
certainly get a couple of head turns, undoubtedly.
Yep. Coming on stage for a panel. That'd be
Oh
great.
my gosh, that would be wonderful.
I love it.
Were you there for Peter New doing the Princess Big Mac cosplay. Were you on that panel?
Maybe. I feel like I'd remember it very
You
instantly.
you need to remember that pretty quick.
Peter was doing things so so outrageously for so long that like maybe it just didn't stand out to me.
I mean, that's fair. I could,
Yeah.
no, I mean, that's fair. But
He's Peter.
Princess
Yeah.
Big Mac, though, I mean, that's kind of like.
I might not have been there for that because that sounds pretty monumental.
Okay, okay. All these questions, guys, we're loving it. Just got to be able to find them now. Have you ever played Kingdom Hearts?
No, I've not. I've heard of it though.
It's a fun game. People love their Kingdom Hearts. A lot of Disney. Pretty sure the whole concept of it is Disney, actually.
Right, yes.
Oh, you at Las Vegas Unicon?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Oh no, we need to talk
That
about
was
this
the,
for a moment.
third convention I ever went to.
Oh, I'm so sorry. On behalf of everybody.
It's funny because I actually had a really positive thing happen at that convention, and just before we started here, I was like, "You're gonna ask me what like my favorite experience was at a convention." I was like, I just wanted to like think of that one question because it usually gets asked, and I wanted to like make sure I remembered a good answer. And I was thinking it was in Las Vegas, and this young boy, Carlos, came up to this convention, left Mexico for the first time in his life to come to the States for this convention. And when everything went to garbage, he lost his hotel room. He didn't know what to do. He couldn't call his parents. He was just like this like 14-year-old kid who I guess I at the time would have been, or like I don't know how old I was. Maybe this I guess I would have been like 12 or 13. I think it was like 2013 or something, right? Or 2012. Anyways, we like my parents like took care of him and we took him around Las Vegas that day when like the convention got canceled basically the second or third day. We like took him on all of our adventures and he was so grateful and such a nice such a nice guy and his English was pretty good. Like we got to talk with him a decent amount and so I don't that's the biggest thing I remember. Otherwise, I was probably too young to like pick up on like all the like logistical things that were just going to like, garbage again. But I'm sure my mom would remember that more clearly
Oh
than me.
boy.
Remember Carlos. Carlos was such a sweetheart.
Keep that in mind. That's a wonderful story. I'm glad. I love how
Right?
in all of these conversations about LPU, that there's so many positive things that came out of it just from everybody's perspective, and that's wonderful. That even in something that is arguably one of the scariest moments for our community, especially with Hasbro coming in and saying we're gonna cut that off real quick if you don't clean it up. We
Right.
still had so many positive things come of it.
Yeah, wild.
Would you mind if I take 2 minutes, run upstairs here really quick? I hear some knocking. I want to make sure there's not a dog knocking here.
For sure.
If we
For sure.
quick
Why
break,
don't I get my dog in the process so I can show off my cute puppy?
that would be wonderful. Yeah, I'll be back in just a
Great.
second here. Make sure the houses are burning down.
All right,
I'll be
sounds
right
like
back,
a plan.
everybody.
Say hi. Oh, you look so scruffy right now. You can barely see your eyes. Sir, you need a haircut. You look larger than you are. He's only 5.5 pounds. So right now he's like half fur. If you'll see here, it's just he's all fluff. But this is Magina. His name is Moose. Oh, that was cute. You made a little sound while you yawned. That was nice. His name's Moose. I called him Moose because I thought it was nicely ironic. The juxtaposition, if you've ever seen, we have moose here in Canada, and they are taller than vans. They're very, 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 very large animals. And moose is not exactly of that caliber, size-wise. So yes, I think 7 now is his final weight. And I don't even know how much of that is just fluff. But he was a Christmas surprise. Now I get this opportunity to tell you the story as we wait for Alistair to get back. This was like the first Christmas in COVID, and this is when like everyone was buying dogs, so it was actually pretty hard to find them. But I really always had dreamed of like doing a classic like dog surprise on Christmas. And it was very complicated to like get him secretly, and my dad approved. Obviously, I just really wanted to get like the surprise to be for my mom. He's our family dog. But yeah. So we did the whole I set up the whole like put him in a box. He was in the box for 7 seconds, by the way. I always have to like preface it with that. Huge hole in the back too, just in case he was in there for longer. But I put him in the stairwell and brought it out before we started presents on Christmas Day. Okay, I'd managed to keep this thing in wraps and in secret up until Christmas Day. Okay, this is the whole plan. It went perfectly into fruition, and I brought him up in this box, and I was hoping Mom would think it's like a collection of props or Santa hats, something for everyone to like put on before they open gifts, because that's common in my family. Dress up is not an uncommon occasion. And I kind of was like, okay, like, Dad, do you want to open it? Like, kind of like implying other people could open it, so she wasn't suspicious. And I was like, oh no, Mom, you should do it. Like, you're the Christmas queen. Put it down, and it was the whole shebang, the whole shebang surprise. So yes, I'm very happy with my ultimate Christmas surprise, and I don't think it could ever be topped, because when you get handed a tiny 0.8 pound little tiny cute Yorkie who's just this little 8-week-old bean on Christmas morning, there's nothing better. And I did that. So yeah, that's Magina. I can show you what he looked like at the time, because he was very cute. In fact, I was just showing this video to somebody. To Caroline! I was showing this video to Caroline. Remember like an hour and a bit ago, I was talking about how Caroline had been my agent for the last 16 years. I was showing her this video recently. So I actually, even though it's like 2 years ago now almost, or like a year and a half ago, it's somewhere, I believe, pretty recently in my timeline, because I saved it. Oh, yeah, here we go. I like duplicated it on my iPhone. Okay. I can't see my little screen. Where am I? If I do grid, I will see. Oh, there I am. I could have done grid this whole time, but I don't need to see me. There are such thing as mirrors, you know. Okay, this is the vibes. Look at him! Look at him! Look at him! He's so little. He's a little bean. Like, my mom's hands are not that big. They're the size of mine, and he's literally like the size of my phone. He's just this tiny. He was as tall as like a tall Starbucks cup. Like just this short little stubby cutie pie. So he's 1.5 years old now. Oh, actually, well, he was born in October, I guess, or late October. He was 8 weeks old when we got him. So he'll be 2 years in like October 20th, I think is his birthday. But come back. You spent only a short amount of time with me. Bettina, I know you're tired, but you can have a rest. You see your friends again. You're such a fluffy mutt. I can barely see your face. Sir, you fluffy boy. I love this dog. Every time I come back to say hello, he gives me his wiggle greeting. He like wiggles his butt. He's very proficient wiggler. We call him the wiggle boy because he's just like, he loves to see his peeps because he's a COVID pup, and like COVID dogs didn't really get to socialize. I'm sure it's probably difficult for babies, but at least babies you can tell them what happened, and dogs are like, I don't get it. Why aren't people home all the time, always? So he's kind of very stressed, but my dad's had to travel a lot since the pandemic, and I moved downtown, but so I think he's kind of like, he's getting a little bit more used to it, but he's still very attached to people. So he's quite excitable when people come back home, to say the least. So you look like this, just like this little like mat right now, sir. We're very fluffy. We're very fluffy boy. Welcome back. Here's my little fluff ball. I told the peeps. I told the peeps some stories that you can go back and watch.
Want to come up here and say hi? Go on.
Hello, Amagina, you have a big friend.
Come on.
This dog looks like it's maybe 500 times bigger than you, but you like bigger dogs.
Oh, good girl. Oh, yeah, she's a little camera shy. Got a big old pit bull over here.
Oh, Piffle, nice. Cute.
Sorry about that. She desperately needed to use the restroom. It appeared. Appreciate your patience.
No worries.
You know those
I
2 o'clock in the
got
morning
break.
restroom breaks.
Exactly.
We have this little
Well,
bonding thing we do.
I'm very much enjoying myself, but maybe we should wrap it up relatively soon
Yeah.
because it is getting not close to my bedtime, but close to the time I would have to leave to go back to bed to get to bed at a reasonable time, if that makes sense. So,
Oh, it
yes,
does. It does. We're gonna
I
answer a few more questions here, if that's all right with you. We wrap it up. We
no,
have
of
a couple
course,
outro things to
of
do,
course.
and we will
Yeah,
we'll see.
awesome. Sweet.
Um, Somebody had asked, do you have any advice for somebody closer to your own age now getting into voice acting for the first time? What steps they might take and what that would look like for them if they want to give it a try?
I think like training is so important. And it's interesting because, like, as I started so young, my route was so different. But I think it's kind of the same regardless of whether you started in voice acting or not, or you started in any industry or not. But arts is kind of like the only one that seems like kids can like get into it so early on in a professional circumstance. It's kind of one of the rare career paths that happens, unless it's like obviously there's like child labor and stuff. But I'm not even. Sorry, I'm getting tired, so I'm rambling a little bit. But I think, you know, everyone has to find their voice. Once your voice is fully developed and you really are an adult voice actor, finding your characters, finding what you can bring uniquely to the table is so important. And it's a hard process, but um, you know, ultimately the any career path in the arts, like just commitment to the training and to finding like, you know, just getting as good at your craft as you can, and then worrying about the other stuff as again like sort of the separate business mind. um I don't know, that's the biggest thing, is just like keep learning and have no ego, especially if you're young, but even if you're older, like no one should have any, no, nothing. It's just like even if you put in hard work and you're not getting anywhere, like that doesn't necessarily mean that you're not like gonna book something too. Like don't give up also, because like it's a hard industry, and if you didn't, like if you're just starting into it, it can be really hard egg to crack. But that kind of stuff just requires having thick skin too, and just keep pushing through. And if you're passionate about it creatively, again, the business stuff, that always comes, and you can have a separate mindset for that as well.
Great answer. I mean, I'd like to add, of course, I mean, you also need to smoke the cigarettes so people think you're cool. You
So true.
gotta, there's a lot of social things
You
you have to
kill at least
navigate.
2 people before you're allowed into the cult, but, that's a whole other separate thing.
Well, it's important. We got to give the people the facts. Um,
Yeah.
let's say 2 more questions here. Somebody says, as a fellow Canadian, which province do you like the most?
Well, I'm from BC, so I love me BC. But I have a lot of family in Ontario, so I love going to Ontario. Although with the extreme weather everyone has out east, I'm a BC gal through and through. I think we got it the best here. We got the moderate temperatures, we've got the West Coast vibes, we've got all the mountains, we've got the island over here, big Vancouver Island, and Vancouver's, there's kind of no better place to be. But yeah.
Okay, heck yeah. Final question here. This is going to be from Grimlock, one of our moderators. We had that drop, and from what I've heard, because I never got any emails directly, we got a little we shared the blooper that came out, and maybe it wasn't in the best of taste that we did that, but we found that there was a lot of exciting things going on behind the scenes. Do you have a favorite blooper memory?
Oh, I remember my answer for this for many, 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 many years, and I don't think it ever changed since the day that it happened. Peter knew, going back to Peter, obviously, because it all goes back to Peter. When it comes to the funny moments, he ate like a burrito or something before a session, and I'll never forget how loud his stomach was in the session. And it was just like none of it, like it was coming through to the like 87s, like the 87s, our microphone, like they're pretty far above where Peter's stomach would have been. And like our engineer Adam was like, I can hear it. I can hear his stomach gurgling in like other people's microphones that was like 2 spaces away from him. So it was very, very funny, and we all, had huge laughs about it that session. And so I remember that being my answer for a very long time. So I'm pretty sure it was a good answer.
That is pretty great. I don't remember ever hearing that. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the things you have going on, upcoming, some of the places maybe you share your content, social media and the such. Really, just to plug whatever you got going. We'd really love to find out about that and follow it.
Yeah. Well, my latest album, Storm, came out, pandemic era. And that's just like wherever you listen to music, that's just the answer, right? It's iTunes and Spotify. And if you're still listening on Bandcamp, but I think Spotify, I mean, I was very religious about iTunes for a long time, but then I was like, no, Spotify, I should probably skip to Spotify here. But it's all everywhere, my music, and Storm is my newest album that I'm really, really, really proud of, and worked very hard on. And I'm definitely going to be, I've sure been writing a lot. I'm just writing like crazy. So there'll be lots of new music coming up in the following years here. And again, like just it's just Michelle Creber on all the socials. I feel like I'm pretty easy to find with my music and stuff, and like it's my website or YouTube or Spotify. But I guess in the coming months, like something fun that people could participate in is because we do our courses, we do our Creber music courses, which are really fun. We started those in the pandemic, when Zoom became such an easy thing to use, and to be able to teach people, in different areas of the world is really fun, which otherwise you wouldn't be able to do. But we're doing a musical theater camp. So we used to do it all the time in Vancouver. Like I grew up with my mom bringing these whole things together, and she had this idea to like do it virtually this year basically, and I don't know, we haven't done one in forever. And it'll be really fun to like see how we can make that happen. And also because there's so many people that we know that want to like participate that aren't necessarily like voice actors or singers, but they want to like contribute their like visual art to like create the backgrounds and stuff. So that's really fun. We'll be starting that, I think, in July, like later, mid-July or something. So that'd be a fun thing if people wanted to participate, like whatever you do. That'll be fun. But yeah, otherwise the music's always coming out. That's always my biggest thing. The projects, you never know. They're always all over the place, but I usually will post about them, or you can go on IMDb and stuff. But yeah, yeah.
Heck yeah, doing all that writing, we got to collaborate. I need some help writing some of these gangster rap songs, and I feel like you're the one. I feel like you could really pull that together. Once you hear what I'm
Man,
working with here, you're gonna be like, wow, I don't know why we didn't do this sooner.
I gotta write a song in every style at some point. So I love it. Let's do it.
Heck yeah,
Let's do it. I gotta find a chain as thick as that though, and then we can officially start it up.
that's fine. You probably never talk to me again if you found out how much I spent on this. But
I don't
for
want to
real
know.
though, this was a heck of an opportunity. I really appreciate it. I'm really grateful that you took the time to sit down and talk with us and answer all of these questions from our lovely audience. Um, it's been a minute as we've talked. It's been a journey, and I think it's incredible where we've came, and just looking forward at all of the years. This is a new chapter in Pony, and we've got a lot ahead of us as well. Uh, and we hope to see you
Yeah.
along for that, as much as you're willing to be a part of it. Even if it is officially as G5 Alicorn Princess. We're looking forward to that.
Well, you gotta watch out for Darth Vader Apple Bloom. It's gonna happen. I'm promising it here. So, you know.
Okay, heck yeah.
No, it's a pleasure, and it's so great. Like you said, it's all so nostalgic, and it's such a big part of my upbringing. So many conventions and experiences that are just like ingrained in my whole childhood. So it's fun to revisit it. It's really fun. And again, glad I could bring out this shirt again, man. I couldn't tell you how excited I was when I found it. I was like, this is so great. I don't even know where I got it. No one gave it to me. I know I found this one myself. But yeah. This was great. Very, very fun. Very fun to catch up.
a good shirt. Do you have any
It is a
famous last words, as we call it? Any famous last words you'd like to give before we wrap things
class.
up here?
Well, I will have to bring it back to where we started, Alistair, and this might be a little surprising, but I have a very important question for you.
Oh,
Stay fruit? Oh, I don't know. You can
yeah.
give me your answer in the mail. You can send it via pigeon, via, MySpace. Just get it to me.
Okay.
Whatever means possible. You tell me your answer, and I will make waffles. There you go.
Sounds good.
It's important.
You can't tell from me sitting in the basement all the time. I'm Native American. I'll smoke screen it to you. I'll get it to you. Or smoke signal. You'll get that here shortly. Just keep an eye out.
All right, I will. I will. I will look very, very hard and long and far to find your smoke signals.
Good.
In Missouri? You're still in Missouri?
Kansas City, yeah, you're gonna have to. It's gonna be.
It'll
I'll
be
get
a
it to
it'll
you.
be a hard squint. That is for sure.
You'll see it.
Yeah, I
I
will.
have I have complete
We'll use
faith.
the telescope. Yeah,
Once
because the Earth
again,
is flat, so it's fine.
that helps. That helps.
It does, right? It's
All the
so
smog and
useful.
pollution, though. I mean, we'll see. Once again, you'll get it. I
Yeah,
promise you that much.
yeah, yeah.
For real though, I mean, once again, an honor. We really are excited to have you on here, and we'll invite you back. Let's just do this every week. We'll just do this every week. You can come back and waste 2 hours of your night just answering the same fan questions over and over again.
Uh,
I think it'd be a lot of fun. I think it's a good career choice, especially. Um,
yeah.
Genuinely though,
Well,
thank
you know
you.
what? It was great. It was great to bring up those questions because they were once, in constant cycle. But this was breaking out. Well, it was actually a nice collection. I didn't find a lot of them to be necessarily ones that were like the most quintessential of the questions that were just like we've answered a billion times. So I felt like it was a nice balance. Nice balance.
Okay. Well, if anybody has any of those quintessential questions, just get them all together. I'll compile them in an email. I'll send it. She can answer those later, and we'll get those back to you guys.
Yes.
Because I know
Great.
those are important and they mean a lot to you. But I'll go ahead and wrap up here if you don't have anything else. Um, yeah.
Well, I've already asked the quintessential questions, so I think we've
Famous
gotten
last
to our
words. Squared.
yes.
Good, good,
The
good,
proclamation has been made.
good.
Hmm.
Thank you very much, everybody. Once again, Alistair Black, joined with Michelle Creber for the Horse's Mouth episode number. We'll figure it out when that time comes. Thank you for tuning in, and have a wonderful week, guys.
Thanks, guys.
I'm gonna do my princess wave
Oh, I
just
will.
to sign off.
Beautiful.
Got to give them
Beautiful.
something. Got to be regal about it.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody,
Mm.
for chatting with us, and everybody in the Discord. Thanks for swinging by. We'll have another one up before too long. We're just gonna hard cut it just somewhere in the middle of a sentence. That seems to be the best. Just
Nice.